Muskegon, Michigan, sits on the eastern shore of Lake Michigan, a lumber town grown quiet after the Great Pines were gone. By 1925, its sawmills had fallen silent, and its people made their peace with smaller ambitions. But that autumn, the town would host a single, violent hour it could never quite lay to rest. This is the story of two men who met on a Halloween street and left it together. The first man was Detective Charles Hammond, a local officer known for a steady hand and a plain sense of duty. He was not a legend, not yet, just a policeman in a modest coat, walking beats he had walked for years. Neighbors trusted him the way you trust a fixture of a place. He knew the alleys and the faces, and he believed the law meant something even in a lawless decade. The second man went by the name Dutch Anderson, and he was something the town had never seen up close. Educated, well-spoken, and impeccably dressed, he moved through the criminal underworld with the manners of a gentleman. He was said to be fluent in languages, comfortable with a wine list, at ease in fine hotels. And he was, by 1925, one of the most wanted men in America. Anderson had built his reputation alongside Gerald Chapman, a notorious partner in a string of daring robberies that made national headlines. The newspapers loved them, the polished bandits who seemed to belong more to fiction than to fact. But glamour has a short shelf life. By that fall, Chapman was in the hands of the law, and Anderson was alone, drifting, and increasingly desperate. This was the age of prohibition, when the line between citizen and criminal had blurred for an entire nation. Ordinary people broke the law to buy a drink. Extraordinary criminals became folk heroes. In that fog, a man like Anderson could pass as a respectable stranger, and in a town like Muskegon, a well-dressed newcomer drew curiosity more than suspicion. Anderson had passed counterfeit money in the region, and word of the forgeries began to circulate among local merchants. Small transactions, carefully placed, until someone noticed the bills did not ring true. In a close community, whispers travel fast, and by late October the authorities had reason to watch for a certain elegant stranger. The net, invisible and patient, began to close. On the evening of October 31st, 1925, Detective Hammond was on the streets of Muskegon Heights. Children in costumes drifted between porch lights, and the air carried the ordinary mischief of Halloween. Somewhere in that ordinary night, Hammond crossed paths with the man the whole country was hunting. Neither knew, in that first instant, exactly who the other was. Accounts say the detective approached to question the stranger, sensing something out of place. Perhaps it was the counterfeit trail, perhaps only an officer's instinct honed by years on the beat. Anderson, cornered and unwilling to be taken, made his choice. In the space of a heartbeat, a routine encounter became a matter of life and death. The guns came out on a dark street lined with modest homes. Shots cracked through the Halloween quiet, and the costumed evening shattered into chaos. It was fast and merciless, the kind of violence that leaves no time for words. When the smoke cleared, both men lay mortally wounded on the pavement. Detective Charles Hammond had done what he swore to do, stopping one of the nation's most wanted fugitives on a small-town corner. But he had paid for it with his life. Dutch Anderson, the educated bandit who had eluded the law across state lines, met his end far from the glittering hotels he favored. Two men, opposites in almost every way, died within reach of each other. The news traveled quickly, and the town found itself at the center of a story larger than itself. Reporters came to Muskegon to write of the humble detective and the sophisticated outlaw. Some mourned the lawman as a hero of small-town justice. Others, quietly, felt a strange sorrow for the brilliant criminal whose gifts had led him to such a lonely end. There was, in the retelling, something almost tragic in the pairing, the dutiful officer and the gifted rogue, bound together by the manner of their deaths. A community that had known one man well and the other not at all tried to make sense of both. Was it triumph or was it waste? In a place this small, such questions do not fade easily. Both men were laid to rest not far from where they fell, their graves separated by a short distance and an unbridgeable divide. One buried among neighbors who honored him, the other a stranger far from home. The lake wind that sweeps these grounds does not distinguish between hero and outlaw. It only carries the quiet of the years. Nearly a century later, the 1925 Muskegon Shootout survives as local memory, a single violent night that gave a modest town a place in the chronicles of the Prohibition era. It endures because it holds everything at once: courage and vanity, order and rebellion, mutual respect and mutual ruin. Charles Hammond and Dutch Anderson met once, and once was enough. In Muskegon, the Halloween corner still remembers.